unapologetic, unadulterated, and uncompromising. Greetings, brothers and sisters from around the world, and welcome back to the home, the haven, the stronghold, and the superfortress of intelligent black thought. This is the BlackChannel.net radio. I am, of course, your host, your brother, your humble servant, Mr. Jason Black, the Black Authority. And we're glad to have you all with us here tonight. The telephone number is 646-787-1933. That is 646-787-1933 is your personal access code to the blackest radio program in existence, the only one of its kind on planet Earth today. Join us. And tonight is going to be one of those things. Now, if you missed last night's broadcast, if you missed it, I don't know. It's last night's broadcast was one of the reasons why I tell you, you really can't afford to miss any of them. You can't afford to miss a single one. And the reason for that is because if you miss a single one, you're going to miss out on something epic. We had a caller who called in last night who, while trying to flip-flop word games, he told the world multiple times that it would not bother him if you called him a suspected pedophile. That label doesn't bother him. That because you said suspected, that makes it okay. All right. First the famine, then the feast. Tariq Nasheed called in last night. And if you haven't been to Kickstarter to go and support Hidden Colors 4, you definitely need to be there. You want to be a part of this work. In a day and age where people are making millionaires out of angry birds and exploding kittens, you would think there's something that has to entail with African survival. You would think we'd be lined up for that like we are the new Jays. And then after Tariq got off, we got another call. It was a call from a woman who claimed to be in her late 70s, a card-carrying alumni of the civil rights generation. She said that she marched with Dr. King, didn't they all? And yet the man got killed amazingly, and they all dispersed. They were so dedicated to the cause that when he was killed, it was all over. I think it's rather ironic that she called 30 years to the day. I'm sorry, 50 years to the day, not 30. After Malcolm X's assassination, I found it to be all rather ironic that here she would be calling up. And I'm going to play the call for you. I'm going to play it in its entirety so that you all can hear for yourselves, because we had to sign off last night right when that happened. But I want you to listen in for yourselves. I want you to listen for yourselves. And tonight is the night where I remind you tonight why it is that we, the current generation of Africans in America, and truly Africans around the world, are in the destitute situation we're in tonight. I want you to listen to the phone call that came in last night. Totally undirected, unfocused, self-serving, arrogant, egotistical, and a bunch of other adjectives that do apply. But I'm going to let you listen for yourselves, and then I'll be back. And we'll discuss what it is that you're hearing. Live with the Black Channel.
Brother, I just want to say that how it's going is powerful.
Okay, that's the wrong area right there. And it's not,
Don't you think that fear...
Okay, let me cue that up here. How are you listening to us if you don't have a computer?
Because I have your phone number, and that's how I got connected to you.
Aha. Somebody gave you the phone number.
Yeah.
That's a good friend you have.
Yeah, I appreciate it. But I wanted to ask you something, because I happen to be in my late 70s, I've seen a lot of ugliness in this country. Of all the things that you and that other man spoke about, I'm assuming that man that made the movie, what the heck, it's something for. I heard him say something about movie something for.
Hidden
and
Colors.
It costs a lot of money.
It's Hidden Colors
Yes,
4.
Hidden Colors.
Yes.
Yeah. You all were talking about blacks who consider them, or at least they act like you said, coons and what have you. Don't you understand that those blacks are blacks who fear a great deal of white folks? And that goes all the way back to slavery, because I also have it in my family. However, I happen not to think that way because I marched with King and I put my life on the line on many other occasions. But don't you think that fear is one of the greatest problems that many blacks have today, that holds them back and holds us all back as a people?
Well, yes, I mean, fear is a problem. However, sister, there is a difference between fear and cowardice. You see,
So
fear
do you
is...
believe that majority of those would be cowards, or
Oh, yes, absolutely.
true fear?
Yeah, because
What
fear
makes you
is...
think the majority are cowards?
Fear is a reaction to something. Fear is something that's evolved over the last 160,000 years. 160 million if you want to be precise about it. But fear is something that is natural, okay? Fear is understandable and it's natural. Cowardice is a choice. Cowardice is where you have... Cowardice is a choice. Cowardice is where you have... Well, hold on a second now. I'm the guy with the microphone. Let me finish.
Is a choice.
Ma'am, let me finish. You can't respond to half a sentence. You have to respond to everything. Cowardice is a choice. And the reason that cowardice...
Let me speak when you finish?
Yeah, I'll let you speak when I'm finished. I got time.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Go ahead.
But there's a reason why I'm the host, though. Cowardice is a choice. And the reason that cowardice is a choice is because cowardice requires culture. Cowardice is a practice, not a reaction. When you tell yourself that I will never fight under any circumstances, that is when you've made a choice to practice in your daily life being a coward. That's not fear anymore. That's just, I'm a coward. It is my philosophy. It's my ideology that when I get hit, I don't hit back. When people hurt my children, I don't defend them. When people kill my children, I don't avenge them. It is my philosophy, my position, that when other people strike against me, I run. That's not fear. That's cowardice. And cowardice is a choice.
But then what do you consider fear?
Fear is a reaction.
Some of that I agree with you. Some of that I concur with you, but I want to know, what do you consider fear in a human being?
Yeah,
at this time.
Already explained
at
that.
This time, right now.
Already explained that. Fear is a reaction. Fear is a biological instinct. Fear is a reaction. But fear is also temporary.
Let me see if I understand you, sir. Are you saying that if someone walks up to me at this point and hits me, I will react to them because I feared them coming at me and hurting me even worse than just hitting me?
Yeah, because
Is
fear...
that what you're saying?
Fear can make you...
I'm asking so I can
I'm answering you. If you'll stop for a moment, I'm answering you. Fear makes you do two things: fight or flight. Now, just because you're afraid, fear, as all biologists have and psychologists will tell you, fear generates one of two reactions. You will do one of two things when you're afraid. You will fight or you will flee.
Well, that's true, because I believe in fighting. Go
Okay,
ahead.
so just because you are afraid does not mean you run. Now, if you have a run, R-U-N, just because you're afraid.
Something keeps interfering here. That's why I'm not catching all your
Okay,
words.
well, I'll be glad to repeat it for you. Just because you're afraid does not mean that you're gonna run.
That's true.
You have to practice a philosophy that says, when I am confronted and I am afraid, I run. But you make up your mind before you're ever confronted that my reaction will be to run. Because courage is not the absence of fear. That's a big misnomer. People think that courage is having no fear. That's not true. Courage is not the absence of fear. Courage is doing the right thing while your knees are knocking, as a man once said. Courage is
Well, I
facing
agree
your
with
fear.
that.
So
I
a
agree with
person who runs when their children are being brutalized and killed, denied opportunities, victimized by the so-called educational system, shot down by white supremacist vigilantes, killed by police departments, gunned down by militaries, marginalized, disenfranchised, lynched, brutalized, demeaned, demoralized in the media. That's a coward when he says, because here's the thing, you might have been afraid the first time you saw it. But what was your excuse 3 days later for not taking action about what happened 3 days ago? Now that you can't say is fear at that point. That's not fear anymore. But you're still doing the same thing. You're running. So it's not fear. It's cowardice.
I'm listening to you, but somehow or another, I'm not. I don't agree with all of that.
Of course not.
I see too many.
Of course not.
I see too many blacks today that are literally afraid of to fight back at the system.
Okay, but
They actually come out and tell you they just fear it because they've seen. But may I finish? You said you let me speak, and I did sit back and give you the courtesy. And you also made the remark that you were the host. It wasn't that I was trying to disrespect you, but that came out on an ego level, and I didn't like that part. Because I wouldn't have said that to you. I would have just said, okay, I'll speak.
Well, that's not my ego. That's
so
just
you don't have to tell me you're the host. I already
that's
know
just
you're
a yeah. That's not ego. That's just a categorical fact. I'm the host.
Well, it sounded egotistical.
Well, you have a bad definition of egotistical.
Maybe you didn't mean it that way, but that's the way it came out.
I'm sure you take all
Now,
kinds of things
what?
in an offensive manner. I'm sure you do, but go ahead.
Well, I have a right to feel the way I want to feel, right?
Okay, you have the right to be wrong, yes. You do have a right to be
If
wrong.
you think I'm wrong, but I think you're wrong with the egotistical thing. But you said no. But I disagree. But what I want to say to you is that as an activist, I see a lot of people that fear every day, literally afraid. Believe it or not, somebody came to me just recently and asked me if I would go with them to a certain spot where they had taken her child. He was a teenager, or he is a teenager, and locked him up. And this kid has never given anybody any problems in the community. She was so afraid to go to the police station and ask for her child. And I went with her because she knows I do activist work. And when she saw how simple it was for me to go and speak to the sergeant or whoever that man was at the desk and tell him who I was looking for, then she says to me when we leave, wow, I didn't know it would be so easy. Now, you're not going to tell me that wasn't fear in that lady.
Okay,
that
but she was afraid before she went there, so that's a decision. That's not a reaction.
Because she's never had to deal with the police before.
Okay, but that's
heard
not
about all these killings and carrying on. She's scared to death.
Yes, but as I said before, that's not a but it wasn't a reaction.
Lady.
Okay, but my point is that was not a reaction. She was afraid before she ever went there. That's cowardice.
This is what I'm saying to you. I see a lot of black people like that.
Okay, but that's cowardice. But that's cowardice.
You can't call them all cowards.
Yes, you can.
Because they show fear in every sense of the word.
No, when you're walking around every day afraid, that's a decision.
No, I don't see people like that.
Well, you just described her.
Walk around every day. It's when people have problems that they're afraid to go to the system and let them know that they have some rights. There are people like that, and I mean, there's thousands and thousands and thousands of people just in my area alone.
Yeah, you have a lot of cowards.
I'm in New Jersey, right next door to New York, so I'm in the middle of a lot of stuff.
Yeah, you got a lot of cowards.
Trayvon Martin was killed. I was in Florida.
Yeah, you got a lot of cowards in Jersey.
Excuse me?
You have a lot of cowards in Jersey. You're correct.
Well, there are cowards all over. I'm just letting you know where I be a lot because I am an activist and try to help people. But I know there's a lot of black people that fear the system. Yeah. They fear it.
We try
There's no such thing as a react. They just fear it.
Okay, but
I mean,
that's a decision.
2 or 3 generations.
But okay, but do you understand that you have just described what I told you was cowardice because you said they were afraid of the system? Ma'am,
I agree with you to a point.
Yeah, okay.
But I still say there's a lot more that fear than there are cowards.
No, ma'am.
When I say fear, I'm talking about a lot of females. Many females fear this system. Many males may be cowards, may show cowardice, but many females are literally afraid.
Okay, so why are you making the distinction?
I know that's been raped by more than one man in one night, and they're afraid to report it because they're the ones who become not just the victim. They no longer become the victim. They become the person, almost like the perpetrator.
Well, now you're making now you're disparaging of males.
Going to law about it.
Now you're disparaging of males. How is it that the men can be more cowardly than the females?
Oh, because of their action, the way they act.
Okay.
No black men carry a lot of cowardness about them.
So you think
but
that
there's a lot of them that do because they won't even protect their own selves and their families. It's because of the fact they themselves got screwed up 2 or 3 generations back.
Okay. Would you say that a woman? Would you say that a woman is a coward if she's having a bunch of bastard children so she can get welfare so she doesn't have to get a job? Would you say that that's cowardice too?
No, because I don't think that's true.
No, I'm asking you. Would you say that a woman who is having a bunch of bastard kids to avoid getting a job so she can get welfare?
I don't see them as bastard kids. I see them as mistakes that were not planned, but I don't see them as bastard children.
Do you know the definition of the word bastard?
The law says that you are married legally by this jurisdiction, but that doesn't mean that you got a piece. They have a piece of paper that they give you saying you're married, that you ain't gonna have a bastard child. Because children that are born to those who have those legal papers are treated like worse than so-called bastard children.
Okay, but you're playing games.
Bastard, you got to call some that got the legal paper bastard.
Okay,
I see a lot of them being mistreated. Right?
Okay, a bastard is not
There's
a child.
There's a lot of women that have children and not have the piece of paper because it's written by man anyway. It doesn't state nowhere in the Bible or any other biblical document that you got to have a piece of paper saying that you don't have a bastard child if you ain't got a male there.
But ma'am, bastard is not a legal term.
You use words negative, and then you try to push it positive. I listen to you the whole time.
Ma'am, bastard is not a biblical.
First of all, what is your nationality?
Ma'am, bastard.
You sound like a mixed breed.
Ma'am, bastard.
You sound like a true origin of black people.
Ma'am,
you sound like a mixed breed. You have a nice day, because you done pissed me off already, dude.
What? Do you have bastard kids? Why would you be upset unless you have some bastard babies? Okay. That was the call from Granny Goosemeyer, a.k.a. Crazy as Hell. And that was the second to the last call that I got last night before signing off. Now, I want you to understand that was a representative of the civil rights generation. If you want to know why our road today is so damn hard, that's the mentality at work. That there is no such thing as a coward. No such thing. And then when she did acknowledge that cowards could exist, she only wanted to attack black men. Who needs white supremacy when you have... She's in her late 70s and still bedwenching. She's too old and wrinkled and sagging to be attractive or alluring, and yet, in her mind, she has the credentials. She still desires to carry Massa's bedwenching water for him. That she is out to attack not the problems in black society. She sees black men as the problem in the society. Old ass heifer. This is an old heifer. Old. One foot in the grave, another one on a pineapple. And yet, look what she's talking like. You would not know the difference between that old fossil who called in yesterday and Bushika and Chandalika calling in tonight. You would never know the difference. She talks just like them. Right down to defending the destruction and the murder of the black family. She carried it right down the line. She defended everything. Everything. She made it very clear she is on the side of white supremacy, and the rest of us are the enemy. We are the ones that she's trying to stop. White supremacy, well, they're just big and bad, and you're supposed to be afraid of them. But with black folks, she wasn't afraid of us. No fear. Nope. None whatsoever. That's how you know that you found someone who is working in the service of white supremacy. Just that simple. They are old. They are worn out. They are cowardly. They are despicable. They are disgusting. And they are here to sell all the rest of us out. Period. End of discussion. There is nothing in them that cares for, recognizes, or identifies anything resembling human dignity. They're totally devoid of it. And as if to reinforce my point, this week, with George Stephanopoulos, whatever, they had on Shelby Steele, and they were talking about reparations, and there was another fellow who was on there with him as well. And he was talking about why we should get reparations. It's only 6 minutes. You'll know Shelby Steele. He's the old man who starts talking, and I don't have to tell you who the old man is once you start hearing it. You'll know it when you hear him. You'll know it when he starts talking. You'll know it. And I want you to know that if you want to know that the national white media, they know who to call. They're not just groping around for coons and sympathizers. They're not just stumbling around for them. They have identified all of the people who will walk into black society and make the arguments of white supremacy for white supremacy. I'll go ahead and have you hear this audio clip for you here. I'll go ahead and just let you listen to the whole thing so that you can hear it for yourselves exactly what it is that I heard and why it is that you should be concerned about that as well. Let's go ahead and see if we can get that audio up and going here.
Argues liberals have, quote, damaged the black family more profoundly than segregation ever did. And both men are here now to take on that debate. Ta-Nehisi, let me begin with you. You write that reparations is the price we must pay to see ourselves squarely. Why?
Well, because history matters. It's pretty clear to us that George Washington matters. We all get together and celebrate on July 4th. Independence. We're all very proud of our legacy, our history. We all talk about America's great legacy as a democratizing force in the world. We talk about the greatest generation in World War II. We have a problem talking about history when it disadvantages us. And I think any sort of full consideration of patriotism in this country can't just talk about history when it favors us. We have to talk about it when it disfavors us.
And
too.
Shelby Steele, you've argued in the past that the problem with reparations, it would be trading honor for dollars, selling our birthright for a pot of porridge. What did you mean by that?
Yes, I think that there's a problem of dependency that where we have sort of allowed that to happen in our community, to be more dependent, and that's hurt a great deal.
And how do you answer the argument that Mr. Steele makes in his book, Ta-Nehisi, that this government action has divided us more than ever before, done more harm than good for African Americans?
Well, I look forward to reading Mr. Steele's book. I haven't gotten a chance, gotten a copy yet, but I think I'm a little familiar with the argument. And what I would say, he's correct. Government action has divided us, but I don't think it's the government action Mr. Steele is talking about. I think the government action that has divided us is the taxes that were put on African American labor during enslavement. I think it's the redlining period where we effectively erected a white middle class in this country and declined to do the same thing with black people and effectively left them out for unscrupulous lenders to take advantage of. I think it's the criminal justice policy in this country, which sees African American men construe some minuscule portion of the world's population, and yet 8% of the enslaved population. We definitely have government policies that divide us. I don't think it's the ones that Mr. Steele is talking about.
What's the answer to that?
The answer to that, one can be tempted into arrogance there, but the answer, I think, for the most part, is again this idea that this fact, really, that we have become more dependent as a result of the efforts on the part of white America to sort of do well by us, to do the good, to be helpful, and to make up for the shame of the past. That sort of thinking, I think, is what's caused us the difficult, held us
If
back.
government action is not the answer, how do you close this gap, this huge gap in wealth between whites and blacks?
You don't close it. You don't do anything. You leave it. You leave it alone. You practice as best as possible, a discipline of freedom, where your struggle is not for some sort of advantage, but your struggle is for freedom itself. And that's what you I think do.
Leave it alone?
I'm sorry, that's just completely untenable to me. The gap that you're talking about, for every 5 cents in wealth that African Americans have, white families have $1 in wealth. There's a 20-to-1 gap. That gap didn't get there by magic. That gap is the result of housing policy that we had in this country, a long, long policy of taking wealth out of African-American communities and putting them elsewhere. And it has real consequences. I grew up in a neighborhood in West Baltimore where every day I went to school and at least a third of my brain was occupied with the safety of my body. That's a result of that community being rendered in a certain way for a long time in our history. And so just leaving it alone sort of casts young black boys and young black girls who are going to schools like I went to as a child and just says, hey, go out there and cope. That's untenable to me.
I went to those kind of schools too. Worse. I was in the days of segregation, and again, there's this sort of compounding effect where I call it characterological racism, where we see racism as you do, I think. As immobile, immovable, and the result of that again is more dependency.
I see it as totally movable. I see it totally movable.
And the point is that it ain't gonna move. It is what it is, and it's not gonna change. It's not gonna go away. We need to get about the business of making our own lives as best we can. And
it's about as deep a disagreement as I've seen.
About as deep a disagreement as I've seen. That's George Stephanopoulos with this huge grin on his face. And when he asked the old bastard, and I'm saying it like it is, when he asked this old bastard, so what do we do about this wealth gap that exists? He said, we do nothing. You heard it for yourselves. Why, we do nothing. We just leave it alone. That is an old, cowardly, could pass for something other than black-looking Negro. For those of you who haven't seen him, if you didn't tell somebody that he's black, you could believe he's Sicilian or something else, by the way. And so he walks out here with his banjo just a playing. And his steppin', fetch it, shuffle just a dancing. And he comes out and makes a statement that only Rush Limbaugh would love. That what you do about the acute brutalization, victimization, and suffering of black people in America is you do nothing. And why shouldn't he? Why shouldn't he? Why should he not say that? After all, he's got his. He's got his. He's got his book deal. He's on ABC. He's got his retirement taken care of. Why does he give a damn what you ain't got? Who cares that his cowardice has sold you down the river? His cowardice cut out a little niche for him. And all he's got to do to secure that house nigga position he's got is walk back out here and tell the rest of you, now y'all just be good now. Don't y'all make no, you don't want no reparations. And the reason that I say black people, we should get reparations. Absolutely we should. I don't think that they're coming because that would be the death knell for white supremacy. But as far as do we deserve it? Oh, absolutely. We deserve that and much more, by the way. If you want the honest truth about it, we deserve that and much more. But understand, dudes like him, these old folk, if you want to know what the problem is and why we better fix it, that was a black male from the civil rights generation, and before him I played a black female from the civil rights generation, and they are all so beaten down, broken down, subservient, slave-minded, ass-kissing, white-worshipping, white supremacy scum-sucking, that they're so dysfunctional that the only force, the only thing they will stand up against is black people's progress. That's the only thing that they are willing to fight and die for. They are white supremacists walking around in melanated skin with curly hair. They are white supremacists with melanated skin and curly hair. They sat there and they were making the arguments of white supremacy for white supremacy, and they were shameless about it. They were absolutely shameless about it. And it was disgusting to watch it. If you want to know why we're in the situation that we're in today, that's why. Because your elders, this is what they spent their lives doing. The men on one side trying to figure out, can they become masses, boy? And the females on the other side trying to figure out, can they get good white daddy to take care of them? And these bastard babies that they got. Neither one of them. I played the call from Granny Bedwinch and Shelby Sambo Steele. And did you notice the one thing that neither one of them said in everything they talked about? Did you notice the one thing that neither one of them said? They talked about all the problems of black people. They did not say one word about what we're going to do or what we need to do about white supremacy. Oh, wait a minute, Shelby Steele did answer that. He said what we should do about white supremacy is nothing. Nothing at all. We should do absolutely nothing at all. Let white supremacy ride. Let it ride. Let your children fight and scrap and scrape and claw. And let the deaths and the martyrs of the past simply be forgotten. And it's guys like him that make biracials seem extremely suspect in black society, and that's unfortunate. That biracials usually have to fight a lot harder to be accepted in black society because of folk like him. Folk like him who look in the mirror and they say to themselves that, you know, I could pass if I want to, but I'm not going to be accepted by the white side, but I hate black people because I can't be accepted by the folks who have all the advantages. So I will stay in black society because I don't have a choice, but I will speak against black society all my life. And as black men and black women today, we better do something different. Not we should, we better do something different. Because that type of dysfunction, the civil rights generation lavished and feasted on that type of internal dysfunction. Where the men were building nothing, Shelby Steele said nothing about black men building anything, much less confronting white power. Never said a word about that. And the old senior citizen bedouin, she had nothing to say about that either. Because their goal is not to confront white supremacy. Their goal is simply to try to figure out some sniveling, crawling on your belly method to survive it, not to confront it and stop it. Their goal is not to stop it. So you just heard both of them sit here and tell you why it is that they never got anything done. Could you imagine both of them when they were young? Because we have this lie that we tell ourselves as young people that the elders were somehow different when they were young. That's a damn lie. Take a look at Sylvester Stallone. Sylvester Stallone is still taking steroids, still walking around like this hyperthyroid, muscle-bound barbarian. 70 years old now. 70 years old, and Sylvester Stallone is still doing the exact same thing that he was doing in 78 when he put out the first Rocky movie. He's doing the exact same thing. No changes. No changes. Vincent Kennedy McMahon, 40 years later, still doing the steroids, still doing whatever it takes to sell a ticket. The man hasn't changed. You just saw him on the cover of Muscle and Fitness. Biceps bulging, steroids pumping. Getting older did not change him. He is the same person he's always been. Pam Grier. Pam Grier's a damn senior citizen. But as long as somebody is willing to Photoshop some photos, and as long as Negroes are still living in this fantasy of 1974, that she's still brown sugar, then you are giving this senior citizen the same props as if she was still 20-something, and that ain't the case. And oh, by the way, has Pam Grier's behavior changed? Has she put aside that persona of being hot chocolate? Has she changed? Or has she simply gotten older? And did you notice the similarity between Shelby Steele and Bill Cosby? The way they talk and everything. They get in front of white folks. Bill Cosby was this fire-breathing dragon in front of black people. He got in front of black folk, waving his finger, wagging his finger, sitting up here castigating all of us about what we need to do different, while he's done nothing for black people. Black people have benefited nothing from Bill Cosby. As a matter of fact, he took us backwards. But when he got in front of Tim Russert, well, Tim, the situation is that if we pull up our pants and do things differently. Shelby Steele showing you that was not just Bill Cosby, that is a cultural practice amongst the civil rights coon generation. That they will be fire-breathing dragons in front of black people, but they will not lift a finger physically, mentally, or verbally against their masters. Got in front of George Stephanopoulos. Well, George, what we need to do differently. But when the other brother spoke about it, he said, we have to be careful not to venture into arrogance. So he pops off at the mouth at other black folk. He doesn't have anything to say to George Stephanopoulos. And then you wonder why it is that I say the things that I do about the civil rights generation. It's because it's all the truth. I can sit here and literally play you hours and hours and reams of audio and video. I could sit here and keep you here for the rest of your life. You would be here for the remainder of your days. That's what your civil rights generation did. They hung you out to dry. They did nothing to build an economy. They did nothing to increase power, wealth, and influence. They did nothing. Nothing at all. But they will gladly sit here and tell you that you are the problem. And they have the luxury of being able to do that. You see, Darren Wilson isn't out there beating up on Sambo Granny who called in yesterday. Darren Wilson isn't out there pulling over the civil rights coon generation. You know why? Because he knows, as a white supremacist, Darren Wilson knows they're no threat. They're already beaten down. They already, when the police come by, they say, yes, sir. I mean, have you ever had old black folk when the police talk to them? They say, yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, 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 sir. No, sir. Yes or no, sir. Now, when they talk to us, it's not yes, sir, no, sir. But when the police roll up on them, it's yes or no. Everything is yes or no, sir. Everything. Everything. Now I ask you, if Granny Bedwinch, who called in yesterday, imagine her as the female of the house. Tell me, what kind of home are you going to have with a woman like that serving as the female example in your home? What kind of house are you going to be expecting to have? What kind of home is that going to be? What kind of children are you going to have with a woman like that being the female of your house? What is she going to teach her daughters? Forget how she's going to teach her daughters to face white supremacy. Forget that altogether, because clearly she has no interest and she has no concern about white supremacy. They're not the problem in her world. Think about what she's going to teach your daughters as far as keeping their legs closed and being respectable. Tell me, how do you teach your daughters to build power and wealth when your daughters are being taught that it doesn't matter the conditions or the circumstances under which you sleep with men? I'm asking a straightforward question right now. The telephone lines will be open in a few minutes here, but I want to ask a straightforward question. How do you teach your daughter to build power and wealth? How do you teach your daughter to create even a home? How do you teach her to create a family when you teach her that it doesn't matter under what circumstances you allow men to lay on top of you? Tell me. How is that conducive to building African families, African wealth, African power, even a livable neighborhood? Tell me, how does that occur? I'll wait. I'll wait. Tell me what kind of sons you're going to raise with someone like Shelby Steele serving as their father. Tell me, what resistance to Darren Wilson is he going to teach you to give? What resistance to white supremacy is he going to engender and instruct his children to bring about? Tell me. What kind of father figure is someone like Shelby Steele going to be? If you had a house and he was the daddy, he was the head of household, what kind of family is he going to raise? These are simple questions. These are drop-dead simple questions. And everybody already knows the answer to them. You already know. My job, as I see it, is to eliminate the problems that were created by the civil rights coon generation. That we do not simply sit here spinning our wheels, repeating their mistakes. They made mistakes. They made tons of them. They lied. They did it plenty of times. Our job is to make sure that we do not repeat their mistakes. That's our job. Our job is to make sure that we do not sit here and allow ourselves to fall back into the quicksand that those people spent their lives living in. That's our job. Our job is to make sure that we do not have yet another generation of black females who see it as their job and their purpose to teach their children. Not just that they themselves are bedwenches and cowards, but they see it as their job and their purpose to pass down to the next generation a legacy of bedwenching, whoring, and cowardice. Oh yeah, and hating the men. Even though you only bow to white daddy, you are going to teach your children to hate the men. And my responsibility is to make sure that we break the back of the coon-minded Sambo males of the civil rights generation and their influence in our society. It is my job to be at the vanguard of that effort to break the back of coonery and buffoonery. As black males, to set a new example and to say that there is no place within the black male body politic for cowardice in any way, shape, form, fashion, or manner. And when you can curl your lips and crook your tongue to speak against the interests of black people, that you start talking like a black white supremacist, and you say that our response to white supremacy's oppression should be to do nothing, you are worse than just a coward. You are a traitor. And I tell you all tonight that Shelby Steele is a traitor to black people. He's guilty of high treason against us. But then again, most of the black people of his generation are traitors to the people, and most of all, traitors to the children. They are traitors to the people and traitors to the children. The reason that I am uncompromising about this is because our enemies are uncompromising. Our enemies understand that they are engaged in socio-political and psychological warfare. And they are depending on our elders to sell us out, because these were deals. These were Faustian bargains. Do you all understand that most of your parents and grandparents were bought off by white supremacy long before any of you were born? Do you understand that? Do you understand that while you were sitting in your crib, your mama and your daddy were already jockeying for position to get their pat on the head from white supremacy. Do you actually understand that? Do you realize that your grandmama didn't just wake up one morning talking that Sambo Coonin jive? I want to sit up here tonight, brothers and sisters. I don't want to go deep. I want to dig. Forget going deep. I'm going to dive. You know what I hear when I hear an old, elderly, rickety, wrinkled up, rockhead female like the one who called in last night? Do you know what I hear? And a lot of you, if you think about it, you'll think about it and it'll make more sense to you after I say this tonight. And I'm not just going to be talking about some sacred cows. I'm going to be stepping all over and making hamburger out them bastards. How many of you have actually talked to your grandmothers and your parents and asked them, have you ever dated interracially when you were younger? Because you see, I know I've been here with you 20, 30 years, so I know in the last 20 or 30 years, in your older years, in your later years, I know you're not doing it now, but what about when you were in your 30s or your 20s, when you were in college or high school? Were you the little black girl that the white boys call brown sugar? Was that you? Did you ever do that? Because I notice you do a lot of apologizing for white supremacy. I notice you do that. I notice that you won't lift a finger against them. I notice that you're real sympathetic about it. I noticed that about you. And since I noticed it, I just thought maybe I should ask, because when I see somebody who makes it their job to make the arguments of white supremacy for white supremacy, then it only stands to reason that that person has some type of vested interest in white supremacy. And that there is some part of you that is married to it and refuses to leave. Is there a skeleton in that closet? Is there a bone in that closet gonna fall out? That's my question. That's my question. Is there a bone in that closet that is threatening to fall out? If a lot of you are honest about it and actually think about it, you'll find out a couple of things. Maybe you should start climbing that family tree and start seeing if you can actually come to some solutions and get some answers out of that. Instead of just accepting the bull crap that people fed to you, maybe it's time that you started asking some questions about exactly why is it that your family and so many of these people, why is it that so many of them talk like white supremacists? Why is that? That your old elders, you call them elders, but the old folks in your family, why is it that they talk like that so shamelessly? Why do they do that? And do you have the courage to confront that? Do you actually have the courage to confront that? and ask those questions. Most of you will not have the courage to ask that because a lot of you are afraid of the answer that you will get. A lot of you are afraid of the answer you'll get. A lot of you are afraid that you will not be able to keep these people in your family. A lot of you are afraid that if you ask that you're actually going to have to take some action against it. That's what you're worried about. You are worried about just the one thing that I just said to you right there. Have you ever actually how many of you have actually done an investigation of the black folk in your family to find out if they actually have a vested interest in it? How many of you know whether or not your grandfathers, how many of you have actually asked to check out and find out, hey, granddad, so were you one of these dudes who sat up here and were okay with people calling you nigga to your face because you were hoping that at the end of all that abuse, were you one of these guys who would just do anything, beg, plead, get beat up, anything, because you spent your time extolling the virtues of having a non-black female? Was that you when you were in your 20s? If I ask your college friends and your high school friends about how you acted at the pot, whether or not you talked about dating a non-black woman all the time, what would their answer to me be? If I called up your high school friends and I asked them, did you do a whole bunch of talking about that all the time? Tell me, what would be the answer they would give me? What would they say about you, Grandpa? What would they say if I asked them those questions? Will they tell us that you talked about Malcolm X all the time? Will they tell us that you were down with the struggle? Will they tell us that you talked about Marcus Garvey? Is that what they're going to tell us? Are they going to tell us that you talked more like Tiger Woods and Shelby Steele and Charles Barkley and Stephen A. Smith? Are they going to tell us that you talked more like them? Is that what they're going to tell us? How many of you are really ready to have a heart-to-heart about that? These are tough questions here tonight. But that's why we have the Haven of Intelligent Black Thought, because we ask the tough questions. And we do so unapologetically. We're going to go ahead and see about opening up the phone lines here. See if we can do that. See if I can take a caller from 972. I'm pretty sure I know who this is. Welcome to the Black Channel. What's your name? Where you calling from?
Hi, this is Kimberly. I'm calling from Texas.
Hello, Kimberly from Texas. What did you think about what you've heard tonight?
Well, what I think is that we're not addressing a core issue in the black community. And I think it's funny that you brought that question up, because I've asked some people in my family that exact question. And my response, or their response to me was, we're going to let Jesus handle it. And I think that's a big issue in the black community, and we're not addressing it, is that we think that a spiritual answer is the answer.
I think it's worse than that. I think that the reason that black people, you have to understand, before black folk met Jesus, black folk were bowing to white supremacy. And I know I'm not supposed to say that. I am supposed to pretend that that did not occur. Sister, we were bowing to white supremacy before we ever knew who or what Jesus was. Can we just be honest about that?
Well, I'm not going to say that that's not true. But dealing with people that I know today and now, that is the response that I'm getting from that generation and even younger generation, is that there is no action to take because we're going to just sit here and wait. We will pray about it.
Yeah, but what does this tell us, though?
end.
The reaction has not changed. The reaction to white supremacy's oppression before Jesus was you only had a small group of black folk that would fight it. Most black folk who put the shackles on their own feet and said, hey, let's roll with it. The reaction to white supremacy's oppression after Jesus is, let Jesus sort it out. I'll just leave this shackle on my ankle, and white supremacy can do as it pleases. The only consistent thing is allowing it to do what it pleases. So the rationale that they state or that they give back to you really becomes irrelevant, because the reaction is the only thing that matters, and their reaction has been consistent. When we take a look at it, it's consistent. So I submit to you that, as I've said before, if we found a book of the Bible tomorrow, and we say, hey, we found a long-lost book of the Bible, and take a look at this book of the Bible. Well, what do you know? It says that black people should Jesus said that black people should build their own economy and should stand up to police brutality and white supremacy by any means necessary. This has been solidified, it's been verified, it's been validated. This is the word of God. Don't you know that most black people will become Buddhists the very next day? Don't you know the very next day the churches would become empty? The very next day black people would become transcendental meditationists. They'll become Bahis. They'll become Muslims. They become anything other than a Christian, if being a Christian means standing up for black empowerment. So what they really want is any excuse, any rationale, any lie, any obfuscation, any trick of the mind, any sleight of hand, any cowardly excuse that they have to come up with to not stand up against white supremacy. They'll make it. Whether it's on religious terms, economic terms, social terms, personal terms, romantic terms, it doesn't matter. The bottom line is, hey, I'm scared and I'm not going to take on white supremacy. And why are you guys insisting that I do it and make trouble? Why can't we just roll with it and just, hey, if we just have to be comfortable doing without, if that's the price of survival, then, hey, I'll take it. And that's essentially where we are.
Jason, I mean, I'll respectfully disagree with you on that because, again, I still feel like no matter what religion it is, black people are inactive because they are using that as a crutch not to do anything. I don't care if it's Christianity or Islam. I think that as a whole, we use religion to solve real world problems. And I still think that is an issue.
Well, no, I mean, it's a sleight of hand.
It's really not being addressed.
Religion is just one of the things that we use. It's a major one. But here's the thing, is if we took away religion tomorrow, the refusal to confront white supremacy wouldn't go anywhere. That's the interesting thing about it. Religion, you're correct, we do use it as a crutch. We do use it as an excuse to do nothing. But the crazy thing is, if we removed it the next day, it wouldn't change anything. Because we want the excuse. We want the excuse to keep doing it.
We do want the excuse, but many of us are content with a little bit of acceptance, even if it's not total acceptance, a little bit of acceptance. If I can have an interracial relationship, that's good enough for me. If I can live in a neighborhood that's not predominantly black, that's good enough for me. Hey, we might lose a few along the way. We may have a Trayvon Martin along the way, but oh well. That's the price that we're paying for white acceptance. There has to be a total mental overhaul.
What they look for is what they believe will be a socially acceptable excuse to you and to everyone else. So what they're saying is, it's against my religion to fight white supremacy. You have to accept my religion and respect my religion. It's against my religion to fight white supremacy. Now, they think that's a safe card. They think by pulling that card, it'll make them safe from your criticism. You see, the reason I didn't fight white supremacy is it's against my religion. You have to respect my religion. Well, that just makes you a coward. I'm not a coward. It's just that Jesus told me that he will take care of the fight for me. So I respect my religion. Respect my religion. Don't criticize me. Respect my religion. It goes round and round and it goes on and on. The simple fact of the matter is that there is no amount of suffering that a coward can endure that is going to force him to get up and do something. Because before he has even gotten into the situation where he was to fight, he has already made up his mind that it is his philosophy that he does not fight. So he gets up every day training himself mentally that I will do nothing about this problem. Nothing whatsoever.
But we are trained mentally to turn the other cheek. What would Jesus do? Nothing. So, again, I mean, I'm not using religion as an excuse, but we live in a predominantly Christian country.
But we see the same thing for non-Christians. We see the same thing in non-Christians, though.
That was taught to us.
But we see the same thing with non-Christians. We see the same thing, though. It's not like the Nation of Islam has done any different. It's not like your black Muslims have done any.
They would have a little bit more credibility than black Christians. Not much, but some.
Well, I mean, either you got credibility
Do you disagree with that?
Either you got credibility. Yeah, I disagree with it. Either you got credibility or you don't. Either they have credibility or they don't have it. Show me where the Nation of Islam is confronting white supremacy and has built something to confront them with it.
I can't give you that example.
Okay, how about the Hebrew Israelites? We can go down the list. The thing is,
I don't know much about them, but I'm gonna say no. I can't give you an example.
Right, it's not confined to Christianity. It's not confined to Christianity.
Again, even just some of the things that I've heard with the Nation of Islam, they do talk about building. I may not agree with some of their philosophy, but they do talk about building.
So does T.D. Jakes.
To a Christian church and heard any of the things that I've heard come from Farrakhan.
T.D. Jakes talks about it.
You would never hear that in a Christian church.
T.D. Jakes, well, I'm not sure what you're talking about. Farrakhan talking about building. I've never heard it, and I've been listening to him for 30 years. T.D. Jakes talks about building. I can give you plenty of sermons from T.D. Jakes where he talks about building businesses. Hell, there's a YouTube video about it. Go look it up for yourself. There's a YouTube video about it. He's sitting in this office with these people talking about that and talking about the need for black entrepreneurship. I can show you sermons from T.D. Jakes. I can show you sermons from Creflo Dollar. Here's the problem. The problem is, at what point does it ever progress beyond talking about it? Because I don't give people credit for talk. I give them credit for what you do and what I can see you've done. And the bottom line is, no matter how you slice it, the column of what Farrakhan has built is no higher than the column of what T.D. Jakes has built. Or Creflo Dollar. Or Fred Price or any of the others. We can go down the list. His pile is no higher. He talks a good game about being anti-establishment, but sister, I've been listening to it now since I was in middle school. At what point does Farrakhan start the national bank that we can invest in? At what point does he start the national television network? He's more than got the money for it. The immortal elder Dr. John Henry Clark said it that Louis Farrakhan got $5 million from Muammar Gaddafi. What did he do with it? He built another church. We call them mosques. He took the money and built another church and pocketed the rest. Now, at some point, we have to start saying, wait a minute, that mosque ain't going to benefit nobody but you. What are you building that benefits someone other than you? And the talk, he's very good about talking about it. But once you've got millions of dollars in your hands, I'm supposed to see something happen. I am supposed to see something happen at that point. You can't say you're struggling anymore. I'm supposed to see an investment. I'm supposed to see something happen. And T.D. Jakes can't show you nothing that he's done. Creflo Dollar can't show you nothing. And Louis Farrakhan, after 30-something years, cannot show you anything. Except a bunch of speeches with a bunch of talk and a bunch of nice fancy mosques. But then again, T.D. Jakes, after 30 years, can't show you anything but a bunch of speeches and a bunch of talk and a bunch of nice, shiny churches. He cannot show you where those churches are benefiting the community in any way. It benefits him. It gives him a new outpost to collect money from. but he cannot show you. And here is how we have cleaned up the surrounding neighborhoods. You need to go talk to some black folk who live in Chicago and go ask them about the neighborhood around the main mosque, the main Nation of Islam mosque in Chicago. Go ask black folk about that place. Hell, they had a shooting there. Somebody got murdered really on the doorsteps of the mosque here year ago, year before last.
I've been there. It's not a desirable place.
Now that's where he eats. Now that's where he eats at. And the neighborhood that he is in, if he's doing such great work, why is the neighborhood around the mosque such a slum? If his work was so well, shouldn't he have built something right there? Shouldn't that be the epicenter? Because when white folk build a church, Katie barred the door. A shopping center is coming there very soon thereafter. And that's whether it's in America, Rwanda, South America, South Africa. First they come with their churches, then they come with their economy. Because the church is just their first envoy to build the bulkhead for their economy. See, I built my church. I built my church. I built my church. We're very good for that.
I mean, I certainly agree with you, Jason, but I'm just bringing up the point that religion runs very deep with black people, no matter what religion it is. And again, I think that is generations of being passive, and that's just passed on. And I can't prove it, and I have not done a study to verify this, but the people that I've spoken to, their inaction always comes back to religion. So I'm just saying, I feel like that's something that has to be addressed within our community.
Yeah, but here's the thing. You're correct. It does need to be addressed, but don't miss the forest for the tree. Understand that religion is just the latest placeholder. The root problem is cowardice. And that they will make up any excuse, any rationale to justify their inaction. And why are they inactive? It's not because the religion told them to be inactive. It'd be different if they were properly following the religion and they ended up being cowards. But they're not properly following the religion. They are coming to the table as cowards and then holding up their religion as a justification of being a coward. If you're not going to deal with the root problem, you never move it. Because what you're saying is, I feel the religion is a problem. Okay, then the answer then would be to get them away from their religion, correct?
Perhaps.
Okay, well, either the religion's a problem or it's not. Now, you just said a few moments ago, we got to deal with the religion. Okay, let's separate them from the religion. Everything's okay now, right? Maybe. Wait a minute. Then the religion wasn't the problem.
But Jason, I feel like, I don't know if it was the lady that spoke or it was the guy that was on television. One or the two. I think what they were trying to say in so many words is that there was nothing we could do. I think that was a lady. There was nothing we could do. We would have been killed, basically, or there was nothing that we could do. So, I can't.
And notice she never invoked Jesus, by the way. Did you notice she never invoked Jesus or her religion as her justification for her cowardice? She never invoked any religion.
She probably wasn't far behind. She wasn't very articulate, so she probably just didn't get that far along. So I'm sure it wasn't far behind.
Right, but did you notice that she didn't even need it to justify her cowardice? She didn't even need it. She didn't even need the religion to do it. So what it tells you is that some of them do mention religion, some of them don't, but their real issue is not that their religion told them to be cowardly, and even if you divorce them from their religion, you would still end up with the cowardice. You'd still end up right where you are, and they would just have some other rationale for it. But it wouldn't be any different. Well, I make too much money to worry about white supremacy. We got folk who say that now. I'm married to a non-black female. Folk who say that now. We can go down the list. It'll just shift to something else. The bottom line is, though, if we don't confront the fact that If we don't make it where it is no longer permissible to be a coward, if we don't do that, nothing changes. We're just spinning our wheels. We just go from one generation to another fighting red herrings. We're fighting their religion. We're fighting their dating habits. We're fighting this, that, and the other, and we're never actually dealing with the problem. And we're not dealing with the problem, because we're not actually confronting the root of it. We can fight all these red herrings, but the red herrings are not where the problem lies. Black empowerment it doesn't have to be a religion. Cowardice is not a religious belief, even though it is treated like a religion. They adhere to it like it's a religion, but they're doing it because they're afraid, and they believe that inaction will appease white supremacy.
Jason, I think that this is generationally, this is generational. It's being passed on. And I will say this, and I'm not making excuses, but I do think that the African experience in America is quite different from any people who have been conquered around the globe. And so I think that I don't necessarily think that we started out as cowards, but, being put in an unknown land, using an unknown language, I think that is really where the cowardice began. Now, at the time that we are now, there is no excuse for it. There's no excuse for it.
Okay.
With the amount of knowledge that we have now and the amount of opportunity to make change, there's no excuse for it now.
Well, here's the problem with that statement. The problem with that statement is, do you see how how black people in Africa act? Show me the difference between the reaction of Africans in Africa to white supremacy and Africans in America. I read for you all the story. Prime Evil, Eugene DeCock, one of the head butchers and murderers and assassins of the apartheid regime in South Africa. Black Africans sitting up here arguing for his release. He murdered their sons and husbands, and you've actually got Africans smiling, taking pictures with the man who killed their sons and their husband. Smiling with him. In Rwanda, same thing. We can go down the list wherever you want to go. Liberia, same thing. Chad, same thing. Ethiopia, same thing. The Africans, the reaction of Africans in Africa to white supremacy is no different than in America. So it's not our experience. I submit to people a radical concept, but it's one that is, you have to start drawing your conclusions based upon what is supported by the facts. And let's take a look at the facts. Well, the fact is our behavior in Africa and our behavior in America hasn't really been any different. Now, that's the only explanation that is supported by all of the evidence that we see. Not some of it, not a piece here, and well, that's a strange one over there. All the evidence reinforces one thing, that our behavior has not actually changed. That whether we're in Africa or whether we're in America, we bow to white supremacy. As a people, we bow to it. And we've been doing that for a very long time. Very long time. And we can go down the list.
I agree that... Go ahead, I'm sorry.
No, we can go down the list.
I mean, I agree that the reaction to white supremacy in the U.S. versus anywhere around the globe is about the same. I agree with that. But perhaps Africans in Africa are responding in support of what we're doing here. I think they're following along with how we react to it here. Because truly, they have all the resources there. We don't have them here. So I think they're following along to what we're doing here in the U.S.
Even though they have all the resources, they have all the population, they have all the political control, and they're following us. So do you know what that really means? You understand that you're actually...
That's the same.
Do you understand that you're actually condemning them even worse? It's actually reinforcing what I was saying before. That this subservient attitude is something that came from there. That's the only explanation that is supported by all the evidence. All the evidence, it brings you right back there again. It's kind of like the theory of dark matter and dark energy. It's the only explanation that's supported by everything we see. It's the only thing.
So again, I know you say that you feel like cowardice is the true issue. I'm not sure if that's, I'm just not 100% sure that's the core issue.
What would be the core issue?
I mean, again, I feel like it's religion.
Religion is the main excuse being used, yes. But what is their reason for invoking the excuse? Because if you say the religion, that the main issue is the religion, then by definition, if we remove the religion, then you're saying that there is no more main issue. Which I already said before, well, not really. So clearly the religion is not the issue. It's annoying, and it's what they keep invoking, and you're knocking their shield down, but you're not killing the problem. You're knocking the shield out of their hands, but you're not actually stopping the problem. You're just removing a shield. That's all.
I guess I'm baffled as to how does a group of people dispersed around the world get rid of cowardice? How do you remove that? How do you remove that spirit? How do you remove that mind frame?
Same way Shaka Zulu did.
I mean,
this is not new to us. This is not new. We've faced this demon before. We've faced him before. This is not new. We've been here before. This is not our first time confronting this evil. Cowardice is the first thing that you have to do is you have to make it part of your culture that cowardice is not allowed. That you have an expectation of people. That cowardice is a shame and a sin. But first, that begins by having an enforcement arm. Black society lacks an enforcement arm. Black society lacks it. Right now, we don't have anybody to hold us to a standard. As black males today, tell me, who punishes black males for talking coonish and stupid like Shelby Steele? Who punishes them for that?
I'm pretty sure that's a rhetorical question. No one.
But that's my point.
He's rewarded for that.
Yes, and that's my point. So you said, how do we ambush, how do we remove cowardice? Well, there has to be an overstructure, a leadership class that says, these are the rules, and if you do not adhere to the rules, there will be punishments. That's what has to be. That's how you deal with cowardice. And white supremacy keeps drilling this back into their children. Whether it's, remember the Alamo 300, charge of the Light Brigade. They keep telling their children that there must be something worth dying for. And that if you are unwilling to do this, you're a coward. That you are not honorable. that you're not respectable. That was the entire point of 300. To drill into the heads of young white men that this is the standard that we expect of you if you intend to be respectable. If you intend to be esteemed and honored, this is the standard. Come home with your shield or on it. This is the standard we expect of you. Right now, black people need such a thing. Now, Hollywood is part of that leadership class. Hollywood is a part of that leadership apparatus. That's why you have movies by suspected white supremacists like Clint Eastwood, American Sniper. And Clint Eastwood's movie repertoire of the last decade has made it very clear where he stands as far as non-black people are concerned. I mean, non-white people are concerned. So here he comes with American Sniper. Right after, what was that movie? Gran Torino. We can go down the list. We can go down the list. But they keep reminding their children what is expected of them. And that if you want a movie made about you, and if you want songs made about you, and if you want esteem and credibility, this is what is expected of you, and anything else is shameful. Show me the apparatus in black society that does that. Anybody, anywhere. Show me, anybody listening, where's the apparatus in black society that holds that up as our standard? We got the elders of black society calling in saying that bastard babies are perfectly fine. Children without fathers are okay. Now, a woman does not teach her son how to be a warrior. It's impossible. A woman cannot teach a boy how to be a man. But we got some old civil rights heifer calling in yesterday making the arguments of that favor white supremacy for white supremacy, weakening us from the inside. That's something that simply does not happen among these other groups. So if you want to know what we do about cowardice, Kim, we're doing it right now. Because this was unspoken. This was unspoken. When they were sinking and bowing and bootlicking into subservience, they didn't dare to even speak the words that we're saying right now. They wouldn't even dare to say them. They would never, you could never find a room full of black people. I guarantee you, her, Shelby Steele, Bill Cosby, you'll never caught them in a room full of black people talking about courage. And that's why they hate the word coward. Because they understand that when you look at the definition of the word coward, it's describing them. And that's why she hated it so much. Because she was like, well, hell, you're describing me. Well, yeah, if the shoe fits. If the shoe fits, buy a matching purse. And that's why she didn't want us using that term. That's why coons don't like us using those terms, because when we, what is the definition of coon? Well, hey, you're talking about me now. Well, I guess we are, huh? Yeah, I guess we are. But as black people, we have to hold a standard.
Go ahead, I'm sorry.
As black people, we have to hold a standard. So the standard, the way that you remove that problem, that's us. That's you and me and us and we right now.
So I think overall, we're a very emotional people. You know, we react. You know, if you go into a church, a black church, there's a lot of screaming and hollering and dancing and singing because we're a very emotional people, and that's the only way we feel like we can have our perspectives heard or respected, if we're loud or if we're crying, if we're jumping, singing, something along those lines. And so a group like yours, a group like Tariq's, it calls out the bad behavior. And for a lot of us, that's hard to look in the mirror and hear that, you know what, I acted incorrectly and I need to correct myself. That's a hard pill to swallow in our community. I mean, we see it in the Facebook groups all the time. You know, our pride, it's tough for you to tell me, hey, Kim, you're wrong, and I accept it and still keep coming back. A lot of us want to, you know, once you tell me I'm wrong, I'm out. I don't want to hear it anymore. And so can the battle be won? Yes. But, you know, we know what we're dealing with, right?
Well, it's one thing to know what you're dealing with. It's another thing to have the tools and the will and to actually be able to show your actions that have actually confronted it. And that right now is what we're missing. That's what we're missing. And we give too many passes to people for doing that kind of thing. We give far too many passes for doing that. I'm going to see if I can take another caller here. Let me get caller from 856. You're on live with the Black Channel.
Black First. This is Kyle. I'm calling from Northern Virginia, outside of D.C.
What's on your mind, brother?
And, I have a question. I was listening to your broadcast on the 16th of February, which was the leftovers, and you described what a builder was. And you described a builder as a person that implements something of utilization that wasn't already there before. And you also said that an employee is not a builder. Well, my question is, I'm still in my 20s. I'm trying to advance a career so that way I can then build up the capital to build later on in life. Would that fall under that category?
Yes.
Okay.
Now, if you are working because you are if you are working for the purposes of gaining the capital that you need to be able to strike out on your own, yes, you are in the process of building. You are not yet a builder.
Right.
Now, a builder has to be validated. So you can't just say, I got $50,000 saved in the bank, I'm a builder. I got $100,000 saved in the bank, I'm a builder. No, you're a guy with $100,000 saved in the bank. So until you actually complete the process and make something that was not previously there, you are not a builder. But as far as you working and whatnot, yeah, that's part of the process. I mean, but just remember, a job is, in the capitalistic system, a job is the bottom rung of the socioeconomic ladder. Now, the real point is, what is your goal to climb the ladder, or are you just going to try to sit on this bottom rung for the rest of your life? That's the question.
Well, that I am not trying to do. Sit at the bottom rung for the rest of my life. I do not want to do that. I mean, it doesn't matter how much money a person makes. They still aren't classified as builders, even if they're making $1 million a year as somebody else's employee.
Correct.
And that's what I understand.
Correct.
And I have another. Yeah, I have another question. Now, going back through history, after the Emancipation Proclamation, during the Reconstruction era, black people, we did have businesses. And like between that time, between 1870 and 1920. Now, my question is, even though the Civil Rights generation didn't like try to build or anything like that, couldn't they have asked those people, because those people were still old, like the people that lived during the 20s and the 10s and the 1890s, they were still alive back then. Couldn't the Civil Rights generation have asked them, hey, this is, how do you get things started? How do you build an economy?
No, Because the civil rights generation are the spoiled brats of the World War II generation.
Okay.
We call them the civil rights generation. White society says baby boomers. And they are the spoiled brats. They didn't have to work for nothing. They didn't have to fight for nothing. They didn't have to do anything. They were fighting to integrate. What is that? Well, we already have shops and theaters and jobs, but we want the ones that white people have. We got so much now, we want what they got. The only thing they did not want was power, wealth, and influence for themselves. They went off on this social masturbation obsession. But the generation before them, they took what the generation before them gave them and threw it away. We had a black economy. The civil rights generation trashed and threw away the black economy. We threw away our cab companies, our bus companies, our movie theaters, our shoe companies. We threw them all away. The civil rights generation discarded them because in their minds, progress meant approval. And they saw that we got our chance to do what previous generations could not do. We can finally force white society to give us a pat on the head and to accept us. And they used it. They used what their fathers and mothers gave them as leverage to try to get that pat on the head they felt had been evading them all this time. So they had no interest in finding out how to build more because as far as they were concerned, black companies were worthless. As a matter of fact, worse than worthless, black companies were a shame. Black companies were an embarrassment because that means that you will never, the only companies that have value are white companies. The only products that have value are white products. That's why most of your singers from the civil rights generation, they talk about they got cheated in the record contracts. No, you didn't. They got in a room full of white men. They were so starstruck that the white men said, you can get our approval if you sign over your soul. And they said, where do I sign? And then when they realized that the white men didn't care about them, as soon as you signed that contract, you were on the trash heap with everybody else. And then all of a sudden, I got cheated. What they won't tell you is that I didn't sign that contract for money. I signed it because I thought I was going to get white approval, and it didn't happen.
Okay. Well, I guess you're right when you say we value attention more than we value money. So, I mean, those were my few quick questions. I'll let you get to other callers. But thank you, sir, and Black First.
Black First, thank you very much for joining us here, and please do call in again. By the way, because he had asked about the Leftovers broadcast, that was actually Kim. That was actually Kim who was with me that night when I was talking to everybody about that. And you can join her and me. By the way, I wanted to let everybody know that we do have a new group that we started since people have asked me for a group where they can post up things. If you haven't seen it on Facebook, it's called TMI. Don't ask me what it stands for, but TMI. The letters TMI. You can find it on Facebook. You'll see a banner across the top. It'll have Mona Lachey and Melissa Ortiz and Eliza and Kim and Alexandra, and you'll love it. You want to join that on Facebook, I invite you to go ahead and join that. And it's open to, you know, it's not like the Jason Black group. In the Jason Black group, we talk about what I want to talk about. In the TMI group, you have the opportunity to discuss what you want to talk about. So whether it's social, political, male, female, family, economic, whatever you want to discuss, it's an open forum for that. So definitely you have that. You have to be civil, you have to be intelligent, but it's a group now that you'll be able to post up your own things. So if you haven't become a part of that group on Facebook, you definitely want to join that. That is TMI on Facebook. As a matter of fact, I think it's the only group called TMI. I'm pretty sure it's the only one. So definitely you want to join that, check it out, and become a part of it. Let me get caller from 646. You're on live with the Black Channel. Caller from 646, put down the mollies. You're on live with the Black Channel. Okay, caller from 646 wants to have an opportunity to do his mollies. We're going to let him continue that. Caller from 816, you're on live with the Black Channel.
Their whole life trying to come up, and there ain't never, don't come up. You know what I mean? So I mean, I don't know. It's integrity, I guess. So that I don't fucking, waver for my thing. I don't let me not be me. You know what I mean? Because I mean,
this is the definition of cooning, everybody.
If you talk to me and then you talk about, man, fuck them and all that shit, you just do your job and all that, and then next thing you know, I see you running.
This is the definition of coonery, everybody.
That's not networking, that's brown up.
One of the problems that we have as black people is that your attention spans are very short. And we look for things to entertain us. And we look for things to occupy our attention. We got this ADHD syndrome, and that's also a symptomatic of people who are not building anything. That's also symptomatic of people who are not building anything. People who are not building anything, they see it as their job to just keep talking. Or they see it as their job to sit up here and just have a bunch of things going on around them. That's why you ended up with so many churches on your street corners. Black people are the only people who look to be entertained endlessly. Other groups of people are taught to build. That is how other people entertain themselves, is by looking at what they've been building. That's what they do. Black people seek to entertain ourselves by being assaulted and endlessly inundated and flooded with images and with sounds and with input from media. That's what we do. That's our skin in the game. That's what we contribute to it. We have a mentality as a people that we don't actually have to do anything. We sit around with a bunch of people, and I talked about this before earlier today. I'll try not to step on too many toes with this. But as black people, we are the only people on earth who will sit around with a bunch of folk who haven't done anything for us, haven't even told us how we can get where they are, and yet we'll still sit there with them. Over a year ago, actually for 5 years, I've been telling you all how to do what I do. From the time that I set up my internet broadcast, I put up tutorials on YouTube. I am the only person on YouTube who put up tutorials from beginning to end on how to set up your home broadcasting system the way that I do. I gave you bare bones, nuts to bolts, how you can do it. I explained how to do the cable connections, what sizes you need, and everything. Nobody else had done that. Other people hedged around it because they didn't want to tell you exactly what you needed to do, because they didn't want you competing with them. I am the only person who ever actually explained that to people in depth, and made not one but two but three tutorials about that. I am the only person who explained how to make your own media, from the cameras to the microphones to the audio recorder. I explained how to do it. And then I got up and I did it. And after I had gotten up and done it, I came back to all of you and we made 7 a.m. And turnkey, from start to finish, I demonstrated to the world how you do it. And I explained it step by step. I earned my right to sit here. I earned the credibility to sit here and speak to people, because I told you step by step how to get where I am. Now, if you don't have the talent for it, I can't help you there. But as far as the technical part, the equipment, I told you how to do what I do. I took out the time to make sure that you know what I know. And yet we got folk, y'all are sitting up here listening on Blog Talk and everything else. You got people claim they work for big rappers and whatnot. You got folk all over the internet and all over YouTube claiming that they're big names, and they won't tell you all how to use Pro Tools. They won't tell you how to use Reason. Look it up. They won't tell you how to use a damn drum machine. They won't tell you any of those things, but they want you to keep listening to them. They didn't come here to help you build. They came here to make a consumer out of you. I made 7 a.m. and took you to go see Don Peebles and Dr. Claude Anderson and had them answer the questions that you would have asked if you had been there in person with them. I went to go and ask those questions for you so that you will know what I know. And we are the only people who will allow somebody to sit in a room and let this Negro talk us to death. And not once has he ever explained to us how to get where he is. I'm not throwing shade on anybody. Floyd Mayweather Jr. has been calling himself Money Mayweather for a long time. For a long time he's been doing that. But show me where is the relation between his ascension and benefits for the black community, for black people. I say you can watch him do the Pacquiao fight if you want to, but after that, I wouldn't be talking him up anymore. And the reason for that is because it's about time you start showing something and proving something. You should be able to show us where you have started building at some point. And if the only thing you can show us are the cars you bought for yourself and the planes you bought for yourself, you're not a benefit to the black community. We don't need to support and co-sign that. If you can't explain to us how it is that we can get where you are, I can't help you. I can't defend you. I can't do that. I can't do that. It is time out for us sitting up here acting as if everybody gets to be a free agent, because you don't. You don't. The time that we sit up here and act as if everybody just gets to do what they want to do, that time is over. That time is over. You want to talk about black unity, but isn't it amazing? The people who want to talk about black unity, they only want to be unified with the people who are dividing us. That's their idea of black unity. Black unity, they want to divide with the people who say they want to unite with the people who say we should be weak. They want to unite with the people who say we should be poor. Tonight they're talking about, what is that? Is it the Oscars tonight? Are they having the Academy Awards tonight? I think it is. I want to say tonight they're having the Oscars. And tomorrow morning, black people will be yelling. Black people will be screaming. Black people will be caterwauling. Black people will be complaining about what they didn't get on Sunday. But I am here to tell you that if you're allowing senior citizens from the civil rights generation to give you nothing, and you're allowing coons from the civil rights generation to give you nothing, and you are allowing people that you are supporting financially to benefit you nothing, you're a damn fool if you think that white supremacy is going to sit up here at an award ceremony that they built and made for themselves and break you off a slice. That's not going to happen. They didn't create these things to benefit you. They created them to benefit themselves. And you know what? I don't have a problem with that. I don't have a problem with that. I have none with that whatsoever. I want my people to understand that that is the landscape. And that these people are not going to show you any respect until you show it to yourself. The NBA is the league that black men built, but black men do not believe that they can have anything for themselves. The national hair industry is what black women built, but black women don't believe that they can have something for themselves. I think one of the girls who founded Miss Jessie's, I think she just recently committed suicide. The woman who founded Carol's daughter, was that Lisa Price? She committed financial suicide. She sold out to L'Oreal. Because in our minds, what we have is not worth anything. Doesn't matter how much money it makes. Doesn't matter how revolutionary it is. In our minds, what we have is worthless. And it is worthless because, as far as we are concerned, the only thing that has value is that which non-black people have. Particularly whites. That's the only thing that actually possesses value. Anything else has no value. And how can you ever feel differently when that old heifer who called in yesterday, and Shelby Steele, old fossils like that, those were your elders, that 300 generation, that you know, in white society, they keep bringing up their World War II movies and their World War II video games. They keep reminding their children who their heroes are. They keep reminding them. They keep making sure that it stays in the forefront of their children's minds that World War II was their finest hour. And American Sniper, that is what it means to be a white man today. That your ability to kill non-white people, that is what will justify you in their eyes. That's the point they're making. They don't look to non-white people for approval. They don't look to us for approval. And the reason that they don't is because we have not demonstrated to them that we have the power and influence to grant approval. We have institutions that we as black people have built. Rap music is not hip hop. It is not rap music. It is black music. It is black music. When you go and order a pizza, do you notice that they have white names for it? They have white names for it. You go and order your Italian restaurants, your Italian pizza, a Sicilian pizza. They put their names on it as white people. You go and watch the Boston Celtics, or as you all pronounce it, Celtics. They put their name on it. The Minnesota Vikings. And not only do they put their name on it, they put their face on it. They put their face on it. They will put their face on what they have. We don't even want to put our name on what we are. You want to keep going with that? The Ole Miss Rebels. You show me where you have demanded that they put a black man's face on something. You show me where we have demanded that. The Fighting Irish, black men walking around on football fields and on basketball courts with the faces, with the images of white men emblazoned on them. There are no white men walking around on football fields or basketball courts or any damn place else wearing black people's faces. Even in rap music, we do not insist that they bend the knee and bow. How many black folk are demanding that Eminem bend the knee and bow to black people? How many black folk have demanded that? But they demand that you bow when you come to them. In their military, in their stores, in their sports. They demand that you bow to them and to their images and to their fathers. You have to bow. At the beginning of the game, you must pledge your allegiance. You must say your allegiance to the flag. And Rockman found out the hard way what happens when you don't. You must pledge your allegiance to their fathers. You must pledge your allegiance to them. but they will show no allegiance to yours. It should be mandatory in rap music. It should be mandatory that they should have to kiss Kool Herc and Africa Bambaata's ass. In every song they put out, they should be kissing these black men's ass. And I'm talking about just to get seen, they should be kissing their asses. And I said it the way I meant it. They should have to show respect. Tell me when Eminem has shown respect to Dr. King, to Marcus Garvey, to Malcolm X, to Huey Newton. I can show you where he sits up here talking about beating up women like I'm Ray Rice. I can show you where he says that. I can show you where he talks about killing women like he's OJ. I can show you that. Show me where he has shown respect. You show me where he has shown respect to our icons, and now more importantly, you show me where we have demanded that he show respect to our icons. You show me where we have insisted on it. Show me where we've done that. A lot of you want to tell yourselves that you're different from Shelby Steele and the old bat who called in yesterday. You want to tell yourselves that you're different from them, but the reality is, no, you are not. You are not any different from them. You buck dance and sambo and buck dance with the rest of them. You just put your own spin on it. Can I act like a coon without being called one? This is the place that's going to say it like it is. Can I act like a Sambo without being called one? This is the place that's going to say it like it is. Don't point it out. This is the place that's going to call it like it is. Because the 21st century, if it's the last thing we do, the 21st century will be remembered as the century that cowardice in black society was slain and outlawed. You will no longer be allowed to be a coward in black society. We are outlawing it. It's officially being outlawed. And we're the ones who are going to do it. And if it was difficult for you to hear this, it's probably because you were part of the problem. If what you've heard has offended you, that's probably because it applies to you. If you haven't been to our website, 7ammovie.com, you're definitely going to want to be there. You can go ahead and click on the website. We do have a link where you can order your DVDs. DVDs will start shipping this week. So we're taking the pre-orders on those now. If you want to be first in line, you definitely want to get there. So definitely go to our website, 7ammovie.com. That's the theatrical release, the 2-disc set, which will have the extras. That's going to be coming very soon for our brothers and sisters overseas. The PAL version of 7am will also be coming very soon thereafter, so don't worry, we got you taken care of where that's concerned. So you definitely want to have that available as well. And also, you want to be a part of our new group, TMI, on Facebook. That group is TMI, the letters T, Tango, M, Mary, I, Igloo. TMI on Facebook, definitely come and be a part of that as well. It actually allows the rest of you to post up. Use your powers wisely. And this concludes tonight's broadcast of the BlackChannel.net radio. I am your host, your brother, your humble servant, the Black Authority. And until next time, brothers and sisters from around the world, remember, black is the future, and the future is uncompromising.